Welcome to Behind the Badge with your hosts,
Lieutenant Ryan Williams,
and Officer Cammie Vandermolen.
your source for all things Spondy Police.
Today on Behind the Badge, a weekly visit with the Fond du Lac Police Department. Lieutenant Ryan Williams is in studio, and it's one of our favorite topics today.
Always a favorite topic. It's that most wonderful time of the year, right? With the holidays and with everything else. Those that have been in Fond du Lac know that November 15th marks the beginning of winter ordinance parking.
That's actually today.
That is today,
It
yes.
is today. It takes effect.
So what that means generally is that from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., you need to park on the side of the street, which is in accordance with the date that it is. So today would be the 15th, which means you have to park on the odd side of the street. So how do you determine the odd side of the street? Well, generally it's determined by your house numbers. So, but I can tell you that everything that's on the east side of the street and everything that's on the north side of the street would be odd numbers.
Is that universal just to Fond du Lac, or is that like every community?
It's not every community. Like some communities will run like the grid system and stuff like that. So it's just how the community is laid out. But Fond du Lac is laid out that way. And the nice thing about Fond du Lac is you can always determine which way is north because we have that big body of water right to our north. So
That does help, right?
that is north. So if you're on the north or the east, those are odd numbers. That's where you need to park on odd days. So your 1, 3, 5, 7, all those. And then obviously on the even numbered days, then you need to park on the even side of the street. So we get questions all the time. It seems somewhat simple, but there are things to think about. It's only enforced from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
It's not all day.
Right, it's not all day. So from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., that's 12 hours where you get to move your car to the opposite side. So you have 12-hour leeway to get your car on the right side of the street. The other thing that we get all the time is winter parking ordinance rules oversee all other parking rules on the street. So as far as if you have a street like in town here, like Ellis Street, where it says parking only on this side or one side parking, you actually need to disobey those parking signs because it's winter ordinance parking's in effect, and you'll have to go on the odd or even side of the street depending on the day. That is a hard thing to kind of grasp, and that's probably where we do see a lot of our violations. Now, we don't go out and just ticket right away. In fact, for those watching from YouTube, we'll see I have this beautiful winter parking ordinance green card in my hand, and what we do is we start an initiative where we plaster vehicles with these cards, and the entire ordinance is written out on the green card. So cars parked on the street, you'll start seeing these green cards appear on your cars, and that will describe the winter parking ordinance because we want to give everybody a chance at compliance. We also anybody that follows our Facebook page, we've already had some posts on there. Our YouTube page will have posts on there because someone gets a ticket, and what's the first thing they say? I didn't know there was an ordinance.
Right.
We have had the ordinance since I've been a police officer here, which is a very long time. So it has been in effect for a very long time. And then the other thing is that people will say, and I do kind of understand this a little bit, but there's no snow. So like, why are we enforcing this when there's no snow? And the reason is because when it snows, it's too late.
Right.
And we need to get everybody to develop good, healthy parking habits before that snow comes, so we don't have to tow your vehicles when that does happen. We have, our city has these large plow trucks, they need to get down city streets, and if you are parking across from each other, some of these streets are very narrow, and you're not gonna be able to get a plow truck through. And then you'll be stuck with not only everyone on that block won't be able to get out, but your cars probably won't be able to get out either.
No.
Although when there's a snow emergency like that. So we want to develop those healthy parking habits right away, and that's kind of the reason for the winter ordinance hours. So the winter ordinance overrides all on-street parking restrictions in a place on any street where parking is allowed. And it also, the other thing, there's another exception on here, is any metered area is still restricted to 60 minutes between the hours of 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So if there are some metered areas in there, you still have to go by those metered areas. That doesn't pertain to a lot of areas on the streets, and most of those would be like right down Main Street area where that would be pertaining. But for the most part, everyone's going to be, the winter parking overrides all other parking restrictions, and we're just looking for some good compliance. I'm actually going to be having my CSOs work some late nights, come in and help with enforcement actions. Some of them are very excited to do that. We talked about my record the 1 year, right?
How many?
I wrote 150 in one night.
In one night?
Yes. So that was,
Wow.
so
Like a 10-hour shift? Are we talking 12-hour shift? 8-hour shift?
when I started night shift a very long time ago, and it's not like I pride myself in parking tickets, but when I started nights along, we they want us to look out for these offenders or whatever. So I would pick one night where it was probably going to be slower, and I would write as many as I could, and I would just go for it. And I'm one. So then I generally want like a ticket booklet's like worth like 25, like it's got 25 parking tickets. So I'm like, I'd like to do 100. That'd be good. So one night I put my mind to it, and I wrote 100 parking tickets, which was a lot. And you're talking back in that day, you got out of your squad for each one. You had to get underneath the windshield wiper, and you have to run each squad because your car that you put it on, you don't want to put a parking ticket on a car that turns out to be stolen or something like that.
Right.
So I did 100, and I was like, "Oh, that was great." But me, I always like to challenge myself.
Competitive.
And I kind of just kind of made that, okay, that must have been the record, 100, but I don't know if it was. And but nobody came close. Like when you get to about 75, so you get to 3 books, you're like, yeah, I'm done.
Right.
I could be done doing this. So then I wanted to beat it, and I think the next year I wrote 125, so I wrote the 5 books. And I still kind of thought, you know what, I want to really make this the record, and
Set the bar so
high that no one's going to even try to get there. And so I wrote 150 in one night. And I'm like, okay, I got this thing licked, and it was standing record for probably 12, 13 years, something like that. And it's not like it's like posted anywhere. This is an unofficial record. It is about compliance and stuff like that. But it just got broke. Last year,
Who?
Officer Lidke, who is a night shift officer,
Wow.
broke it. And I feel like she just broke it. Like she knew about it. I probably talked about it too much.
You had.
And I think she was at 152 or 153. So she just got over my amounts. And but that it's a lesson. We're looking for it out there. It's not like necessarily a contest or anything like that. Sometimes we just do those things to kind of challenge ourselves to be excited about writing parking tickets. Which,
I can understand that.
there ain't many law enforcement officers that are excited about doing that task. So you have to kind of like challenge yourself to be able to go out there and do that. So they'll be out there. They'll be looking. I don't know. Maybe someone else will come and break the record. I don't know. Like
Records are meant to be broken.
that's true. That's true. But the number one reason is compliance. We're looking for that compliance. So please do your best, do your due diligence, develop those good habits now, then it won't be a big deal, and park on the right side of the street.
Do you remember, was it all over town, your 150, or was it a certain section of?
So I kind of hold this with a pride in my heart, and this could be the asterisk for Officer Lidke that broke mine. Is mine were all in my section, which is a big thing. Now back then, we had a 7 to 4 shift, and when they left, you absorbed their section.
Okay.
So I remember I started in what we called it back then S3, but it would be the southeast. So you have a lot of streets, a lot of residents, a lot of streets, like residential parking. And then the person that left was in the south, the S2 section, which was just basically Main Street, everything east of Main Street. So I had a favorable section, but I did stay in that section. I believe that when it was broken, they did go outside of their section, but you know, it's still an impressive feat.
And it's a lot. Wow.
And a lot of times now they just stick them in the door, which it's technically okay to do that. It's you got to be in with the vehicle, so you see that. But then you can basically just drive up and stick it in.
Took you a lot longer when you did it back in the day.
Yeah, I put some miles and I earned it.
You could probably do 500 if you just hit the.
I don't think so. I think I'm good. Like I made my mark. I made my attempt. You know, it's time to pass the torch on, and my desire to do that has gone way down. And as you know, many hands make light work. So it'd be better if we had a group of people doing that.
All right.
Another thing with winter, and this is kind of where people, like, we're from Fond du Lac. I think a lot of people still maybe mistake this as a small town, but what happens is it's getting cold out, everybody wants a warm vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So they start their vehicle up and it runs, and sometimes they just leave it unlocked, or they have the keys in it, depending on the vehicle you have, they don't have a starter, and we end up opening ourselves up to a crime of opportunity. And it's gonna happen. Like, it's like one of these things that's probably the most preventable thing in the world, but it's gonna happen because people are warming up their car and someone, the wrong person, just happens to be walking by at the right time or wrong time, and your car goes missing when you go back out there. So I would advise, if you're doing that, make sure you have some sort of system. Don't let it run for too long. Don't let it run with the keys in it. If you have like a starter system, that's the best way, with your doors locked as well. But just be very cognizant of it. Fond du Lac is a smaller town, but it's not a smaller town where we can do those kind of things. Like, we still should be locking our doors at night. We should be making sure and be present about our surroundings, and we should not be just letting our car run with the keys in it, because lo and behold, something could happen. Now, if you have it running with the keys in it and it's locked, at least you're a step above the game, but it doesn't take much. We usually don't get a lot of people that break windows. So people are looking for that super easy, I can just jump in the car. Not saying that they won't, but at least take that extra precaution of locking that vehicle, hopefully because you have 2 sets of keys. We get those too. The run in the car and oops, I locked the doors with my keys in it, and now we need to call somebody to unlock the door. So, but please be mindful of that. It's getting cold. I understand. I like to warm up my car too, but be safe in doing it, because that crime of opportunity exists.
Great reminders. Behind the badge, Lieutenant Ryan Williams, KFIZ Today.
Behind the badge, we'll stand tall through the ups and the fall. Fond du Lac, hear the call. Behind the badge, we're